All right, we're live. I'm pretty sure. Welcome into another episode of the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson, but not really. I'm Kyle, joined by Ryan Money Mainville. Ryan, how's it going?
I'm doing about as well as I can be.
Glad to hear it. Sorry to our listeners for no intro music, for no classic Rob cold open. Rob might be joining us in a bit here, but in the meantime, Ryan and I will take care of business. Happy Thanksgiving to all. It's Saturday night, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Sorry, it's Sunday night. I always lose track of the days on the holiday weekend. But Texas Tech on Friday gets an opportunity on the national stage against one of the sport's borderline blue bloods. And Ryan, I got to say, I was impressed by Coach McCaslin and his squad taking care of Michigan, leading from start to finish. Of course, that's a game we're here to talk about. No, let's rip off the Band-Aid with the football game, and then we'll end on a high note by pivoting to basketball and maybe some off-season football chatter. Still have the bowl game. Um, Thoughts on the Texas versus Texas Tech game?
Yeah, I mean this is obviously tough for a reason. I mean, when you lose what looks like it's going to be, probably your last matchup against, obviously an in-state rival that you have a lot of history with, and I think if anything, you just kind of wanted to show up and at least look like you had a chance, and that didn't really happen on Friday night. You looked completely outmatched, kind of in all aspects of the game. I thought the defense played okay, at least in the first half. I thought they held their ground, cut them out of the end zone, which Texas has obviously had trouble with throughout the year. But offensively, I mean, we talked about it. Coming into the game, we both, or, the three of us shared our thoughts on what Texas Tech needed to do to win. A lot of that revolved around creativity in the passing game, just giving them a wrinkle, giving them anything that, would lose them, distract their attention, create some holes down the field. And the results were about as far from that as possible. So I've got some numbers. I'll just run through them, kind of rip off the Band-Aid, and then we can decompress after this. So Bear Morton completed 19 passes on Friday for 88 yards, 3 interceptions. It's only the second time since at least 2000, which is when I gave up because that's when Sports Reference stops tracking box scores, that Tech has thrown fewer than 100 passing yards in a game. Obviously, the last one was 2021, a game that Baron Morton also played, not trying to suggest it's his fault, but that awful game against Oklahoma State. Of those 19 completions, only 2 of them went for over 10 yards, which means that 17 of those 19 completions were under 10 yards, and 4 completions were good for 0 or fewer yards. So you had double the amount of passing plays that led to no or negative yards than you did of 10 plus yards. And so now Tech ranks 124th in yards per completion among FBS teams and FBS games this year. There are 133 FBS teams. So you're about ninth worst in college football right now in yards per completion. And, after the first touchdown drive, the only touchdown drive of the game for Texas Tech that was set up by a really good kick return by Dre McCray, the rest of your offensive game was punt, punt, interception, turnover on downs, punt, 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 interception, punt, punt, clock expires. It was a complete flat line. Obviously, I think there were a lot of takes going around on Twitter after the game about, who's to blame, what really happened. But I think, kind of what's unavoidable at this point is to say you did not run the offense that you needed to be able to win the game. And I don't think anybody, prepares to go into a game like that is okay with going into a game like that, or even okay with ending a game like that. So now's when you get to, see what happens from here. Obviously, you've got one more game left on the schedule. We'll learn more about what that looks like next Monday, but just a complete, you laid an egg, and there's really no way around it.
See, part of the reason why we're missing Rob here is one, I would like to hear his take on the game, but two, I completely forgot to mention to our beloved listeners that we are in fact coming to you live from the Cardinal Sports Center studio. And retroactively, had you wished to gear up with a paper bag to wear over your head while sitting in DKR during the 50 point drubbing Cardinals, I don't think they sell paper bags, but they do sell great Texas Tech gear, which we should all still be very proud to rep um, during the bowl game or going into basketball season now. Get it at Cardinals. You can shop online, follow them on social media if you're looking for sales and deals, and check them out in Lubbock or in Plano. Cardinals Sports Center studio. Okay. I had low expectations, I'll be honest with you. I know on our preview episode, I pretty sarcastically said we would win 38-13, and I hope the sarcasm was detected. In Discord, which you can join by being a member of our Patreon community, patreon.com/gamblinggauchos. I predicted 45-3, and that was also a little bit tongue in cheek. I didn't think it would be that bad, but I was like, we're gonna have trouble scoring on these guys. And we also kind of joked about this is Texas's Super Bowl. But were we joking? Because their players said we have never played in DKR as amped up as that was. They played the Yormark video on the Jumbotron. Their players are talking mess to Joey after the game. Clearly meant not just more than a regular game on the schedule, like more than a regular conference game. I'm not over exaggerating, I don't think, when I say the post game trash talking, which you won by 50, say whatever you want, you've earned the right. To me, it very much was up there with like had they beaten Texas A&M in a football game or had they beaten OU in a big like top 10, top 15 matchup. I don't think Twitter would have looked much different. And this was just little old Texas Tech. It's a very, very small nail to hang your hat on after getting 50-pieced. But at least the last couple years, we made them care enough so that when they do beat us by 50, I don't know. I guess they want to pimp it on Twitter more than they would have a couple years ago. I do think that there was like a glimmer of hope for me in the first quarter when Dre McCray did have the kickoff return you mentioned, sets you up with good field position, couple good chunk plays. You find the end zone, it's 10-7, and it felt like the 10 you surrendered. It was kind of like, well, we didn't put the defense in a good spot, bad field position, all that. But it's like, all things considered, 10-7, end of the first quarter here, like we're in it. We can get to halftime with a shot. And, I always feel like if we can get to halftime with a shot, Tim DeRuyter's going to make his adjustments. We'll see what happens from there. And obviously did not unfold that way at all. Something I always like to talk about before a game is like, if you were to tell me before the game that so-and-so is going to complete 70% of his passes or so-and-so is going to have 100 yards, like what are the odds you think that we win this game? Or if we win the turnover battle by 2, what are the odds you think we win the game? Had you told me Taj averages 5 yards per carry against that Texas defensive front, I would have been like, okay, like we found something in the run game. We were probably able to use that to build off of it in the pass game. And I would have thought, yeah, like we might have gotten 24, 27, 31 points and had a shot at this thing. It's kind of crazy that Taj was that successful and you were still that dreadful on offense. I felt like you had some shots early. There was the McCray drop downfield. It would have been a big chunk play, big first down that got you in a great field position. He doesn't make the catch. I'm trying to think of some others. Like the Malik Dunlap dropped interception in the red zone, and the announcers remarked on it. They were like, if Texas Tech wants to pull off the upset, those are the kinds of plays they need to be making, and they're not making any of them right now. And unfortunately, that's kind of foreshadowed the entire game. I'll be honest, I went bowling with my family in the second half once I knew where this thing was headed. I did see, and this is where you absolutely wave the white flag and like, what can you do? The one play that epitomized the game to me is we call a screen pass. They blow it up. Morton's just trying to get rid of it. Throws it off of Taj Brooks' shoe somehow, and it gets pick 6. And it was like, okay, literally what can you do when that kind of play is happening against you? So it's no good. I could probably find some silver linings because I'm a positive guy. Ben Roberts had 13 tackles, 100 tackles on the season. Good for him. Tosh Brooks, 5 yards per carry against that front is no joke. But then, like, after that, I don't have much nice to say, so I probably shouldn't say anything at all if Mama taught me anything.
Yeah, and I mean, even like the dropped interception is a really obvious one, right? Like that felt like a big turning point in the game. The McCray drop was big, but I think there are like 2 other distinctive memories I have where it was like, okay, if you want to win in the margins, you've got to do this well. And one of those was the bad punt by McNamara. Like when Austin McNamara is not making good punts, you know that things just are not going well. And then there was a drive in the first half. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but there were 2 consecutive really bad snaps. And it clearly put Baron Morton in a tougher position. With that Texas defensive front, you've got to be pretty spotless up front to just give your quarterback enough time to make a play downfield, whatever that means for this offense. But I mean, yeah, like those 2 things, they're little minor details that, feel insignificant at the time, but when you're playing a team that's as talented as that Texas team is, you've got to capitalize on every single aspect of your game plan. And it didn't really feel like Texas Tech executed at the level that they probably wanted to on any of them, any 3 sides of the ball, whether that be offense, defense, or special teams. Each one kind of had a glaring issue with it at some point in the game. And that's just kind of, the position you put yourself in to lose a game by that much.
Yeah, I think that's a key point that you always talk about this with home field advantage, and announcers are always like, this crowd is looking for any reason to get back into the game, bring the stadium to life. It was alive all 60 minutes. I mean, I guess it quieted down a little bit the one time you scored, but when you go from big offensive play to big defensive play to big special teams play, and 105,000 people are jacked up, it is so hard as the away team in a spot like that to just find any sliver of momentum. A couple other plays, I thought that I can't remember if it was Lux or somebody else. They wound up ruling it incomplete, but it was the one where like the Texas receiver had it kind of going to the ground. They sort of rolled around. I thought that we intercepted that, and they showed the replay and I guess determined that it hit the ground. Again, that's the kind of play early enough in that game where you go, okay, you turn them over, something you haven't done well all season. You're going to need to win the turnover margin to have a shot in this game. So like, okay, we get a turnover, offense goes out there with some momentum. Maybe we kind of climb back into this. Instead, they overturn it. And then the opposite happens on the other side of the ball. The Morton pass to Bradley that I thought Bradley could have had better effort, frankly. I thought that was incomplete. Thought it on replay. Believe me, I'm not trying to like blame officiating on a 50-point loss, but again, that was early enough where had they just ruled that incomplete and you punt it away or maybe even get a first down, again, maybe it doesn't get so out of hand so early. But like you said, all those kind of 50-50 plays where Texas Tech had a shot to maybe get a little bit get a little bit of momentum or stop Texas from getting more momentum, just always kind of went the other way. And you were toast. I mean, they have more talent than you. They clearly took last year and Joey's remarks after the game very personally. And, you're playing a team that motivated, that good, with that much momentum on their home turf. I mean, it is a recipe for disaster. So I don't really know what else there is to say about the game itself. I think Braylon Lux played a pretty good game. I think Morton maybe wasn't as bad as his stat line, given that he was running for his life a lot, and a couple of those interceptions were iffy. But, yeah, I mean, when you throw for less than 100 yards and you lose by 50, there's not a whole lot of good things to say. But there is one positive to all this, and it's that our dear friend Rob Bro has just joined us in the Cardinal Sports Center studio. Rob, we were just reliving the euphorious bliss of Friday's game against Texas.
Yes.
Your thoughts?
I was watching you a little bit. Ryan saying that all 3 sides of the ball, unprepared, sucked. Well, that was my words, not yours. But I will say this. I saw a lot on yes, I did go too hard on Thanksgiving. Sorry, I slipped up there. I will say this. I saw a lot of positivity on Twitter from a few accounts like, oh, well, you have 2 back-to-back winning seasons in the Big 12, and the recruiting is great in all of this. No, it's not exactly you that I was talking about, but you did do one of these tweets. So don't be down on the boys, okay? You can be down after a 50-point loss. That sucked. And McGuire now has 2 or 3 bad losses. And that's okay to say. You can have 2 things here. You can have one on one side, hey, things are projecting well, But on the other hand, these losses suck. Losing to Wyoming sucks. And at the beginning of the year, I was placing that off as a fluke. But man, losing to Texas like that sucked. That was a bad loss, and that will go with Joey on his coaching resume moving forward. So, long term, not worried. Short term, worried. That sucked.
Yeah, that was just like I got through saying a few minutes ago. All around, just a terrible recipe. Like Texas took the post game last year very personally. They're way better this year than they were last year. They wanted to kill you by 50, and they did. You know, they got to put in their third string quarterback. Just like really couldn't have blown you out any worse, other than a shutout, other than pitching a shutout. But I mean, where I will stick up for Joey a little bit on this individual game, and I agree with you, like big picture, when you zoom out, you think, okay, we're still going in the right direction. We can talk about more of that in a minute. But like your last couple trips to Austin have gone not quite that bad, but they 70 pieced you last time in 2021. And then 2019, it was a Thanksgiving or day after Thanksgiving game that wasn't competitive. I think it was like 49-16 or so. You've played them really close in Lubbock, the last several in Lubbock. I think overtime win, overtime loss, working backwards. 16 and 18 were one possession games. So that's sort of how this series has been. Like in Lubbock, flip a coin. In Austin, they're going to kill you. It's kind of a matter of by how much. And they made it as bad as possible on Friday night, unfortunately.
Yes, they did.
Anything else on the game itself before we maybe talk football big picture or the Texas Tech versus Texas rivalry big picture? Like it's hard to have really terribly insightful takeaways when you lose 57-7.
Did you talk about the disconnect between the sideline interview and the play calling?
No, go ahead.
So Joey McGuire in a sideline interview, I guess it's the first quarter. It might be 10-0. It could be, it's 10-7. You just scored. And coming out of the second quarter, it was the first quarter interview. And he says, yeah, we're running the ball. 28 special. We just had a drive with them. We need to keep running the ball. And then there are 8 straight passing plays that leads to a blocked punt. Is there just a strong disconnect between Joey and Kitley? Is there not a possibility that they have their headphones linked up? Do they not talk during the game? Can Joey not go tell him, hey, run the damn ball? Because it doesn't feel like Kitley has any oversight. And Kitley's 100% in charge of the offense. And I just don't understand that.
Do you remember the first play of the game? Do you all remember what happened on the first offensive snap of the game?
Yes.
I was probably being that annoying guy watching the game, but I was with a bunch of extended family, and I go, first play of the game, watch this, we're going to throw it to the sideline. And I had hope because we lined up, in a pretty standard formation. I was like, you know what, maybe they'll wait till the second play to throw it to the sideline. And then when we motioned Taj Brooks away from the backfield, so we go empty, I was like, oh, God. And then we throw it to him, instead of turn around and handing it to him in the middle of the field and let him go wherever, we pin him on the sidelines, throw it 20 yards to get it out there, get 1 yard like we always do on that play.
Yeah.
I was just like, you had all week to prep for this. You saw their tendencies on film. They've put 11 games on film. You know what they're going to do early. You should know their tendencies on the first drive in the first quarter to scheme something up. And I swear we default to that like a crack fiend, just like we panic, we don't know what else to do, so tempo and throw it to the sideline. It's like you have a running back that, had you handed him the ball the first 2 games of the season, probably would have topped 1,500 yards. This isn't hard. Even though they know you're going to do it, it's like taking the first pitch in baseball. Like, they get probably fastball first strike, but you take the first pitch, feel it out, whatever. First play of the game in that environment against that opponent, hand the freaking ball off. If they stuff you, they stuff you. You're not getting more than 1 yard throwing it to the sideline anyway. So as soon as they motioned him into empty, I was like, I almost want to turn this game off right now. And I at least waited till halftime to do that. and then I actually was forced to watch it at the bowling alley because they had it on one of the giant screens above the lane. It's like, really trying to get away from this, but sure, we'll take in the second half here. But yeah, I don't know what the hell we're doing on offense, and I haven't all year. I don't know to what extent Joey feels comfortable like having a heavier hand in that because he's not an offensive guy, and maybe he just wants to have a CEO leadership style where he's hands off and he kind of fosters this environment of trust. And hey, you're the offensive guru. Get us in a spot to win the game. Maybe he recalibrates this offseason based on some of the stats Ryan pointed out, like our scheme. Kitley was 7th. Western Kentucky was 7th in the country in yards per play, run or pass, in 2021 when he was there. That's elite. And then we're 124th in yards per completion. So, like, we're scheming nothing open down the field. So I think when you go from 7th to 124th in 2 different statistical categories like that, I think it warrants a little bit of an internal audit. Like, okay, do we need a co-OC? Do we need an eye in the sky? Do we need a run game coordinator? Do we need different involvement from other assistants in game planning week to week? I don't have all those answers, but I do think Joey's got to be considering some of that. And I posed a few questions. Like, if I was doing a job eval with Zach Kitley, I would ask questions like, what are like the 3 key pillars of your offensive philosophy or identity? And can you show me in the 1,000 or so offensive snaps that we've run this year when those were, visible? Like, can you show me the game or the drive or the quarter where the offense was doing exactly what you wanted to do and we were doing these 3 things? Because the answer is probably tempo, number 1, and then I don't know what 2 and 3. Maybe hand the ball to Taj after you're kind of forced to do that. I would ask questions like, what is the intended advantage of tempo, and do you feel like we achieved it when we went tempo? They've got to have some grad assistant on staff that can look at yards per play after getting a first down and then tempoing straight to the line. It can't be good. It has to be half of what you get on any other given offensive snap. So that's how I would treat this. Like, I'm not going to get on here and say fire Kitley or whatever. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But you have to have some sort of, like, nobody on the offensive staff did a good enough job this year to just say, okay, we're going to do the same thing next year. It has to be an internal audit, hard questions like that. And if you can't answer them, then we need to find answers to those questions and start to implement them in the spring. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, my bad. Didn't mean to interrupt you. I just want to say, like, as a point to that, I read some stats from Baron Morton and just the passing game in general that were not good. They were very, very bad. Like, you cannot have double the amount of 0 yard or negative yard passing plays that you do for 10 plus yards. That just cannot happen. And as a, just to provide some color on that and, what I think about that, I don't think that's Baron Morton. Like, I would not peg most of that on him. Sure, he made some mistakes. Sure, he probably didn't make the best pass every single attempt, but it just doesn't happen. And I've seen Baron Morton play better games with his arm barely hanging onto his body. Like that West Virginia game. I mean, that throw that he grossly underthrowed to Bradley because he didn't have his arm on him, like that was probably good for, more than half of the amount of yards that he had in the entire Texas game. You just can't let that happen. I don't understand it. And so just want to provide some color there. And then talked about the first like 1 or 2 plays of the game. Like, I think that was the point where the announcers were like, yeah, Texas Tech is going to need to get creative to defeat this Texas defense today. And it was like, man, like, I couldn't tell if that was like, yeah, good job creativity or let's figure out something to do. But it was like, we just ran a smokescreen. Like that's 50% of our playbook. That's not the solution here. And so like it definitely set the tone early, kind of made you scratch your head. And I mean, like it kind of feels like I was in the Dr. Pepper commercial where it's like our season is over and it's just the first play of the game. But like that first drive, man, you could just kind of tell that it was going to be the same old, same old. You're going to expect it to work. And it was even more conservative than it has been at times this season. And it's almost like being in the car with a really nervous driver where it's like you're being too careful. You're going to end up doing yourself worse off than if you would just go about it as normal. I think they were way too conservative in this game and it bit them badly.
Yes. The very first play of the game, I said to myself, this game is over because you're scared to run the ball. You're scared to run the ball. And I am that kind of Hellfire Tech fan that says the game is over 10 times a game. And sometimes they come back and I say, all right, I was wrong. So that's fun. I was not wrong this time. And it was over from the first play of the game. They were faster than you. They were stronger than you. They were more powerful than you. Just looked like two different levels of football out there for a long time in the game, except for Taj Brooks, who ran the ball well and broke a bunch of tackles.
I will play the other side of this. I'll take up for Kitley a bit here. We were forced to play 6 quarters against Big 12 competition with a true freshman who, was never intended to play this year. I think that's fair to point out. And every pass Baron Morton threw this year after Tarleton State was with a sprained AC joint. I think that's also fair.
Sure.
I think being 124th in yards per pass completed is partly a red flag, and it's also partly our guy probably can't throw it that far down the field, so we're not going to call those plays. We're not going to target those guys. You could instantly – the offense might not get more efficient, but you could improve that stat by just chucking it deep. You might throw 4 picks a game, but you won't be next to last in the country in yards per completion. But I don't think that was ever the intent of our offense, was to go gash anybody deep. And Morton made some good throws down the field. I'm thinking TCU, maybe 50-ish air yards to McCray on that touchdown. I think that was probably our longest air yards completion of the season. So, you saw flashes of it, but the guy's got a sprained shoulder, and who knows to what extent that limited Kitley's play calling ability and, seriously, which play designs were even available to us. So I do think that's fair to note. But, again, I'm going to go to the other side of that argument. Say everybody was healthy against Oregon when you handed the ball off 6 times to a running back who turned out to be, pound for pound, one of the best guys who's come through here this century at that position. So I think that's all fair criticism. I think there's context there. I don't think that, this offensive line and the receivers are where they want it to be yet personnel-wise. I think they, have done the best they can there to this point. So I'm not trying to pin anything all on one person or one position group or anything like that. That's kind of the scary thing too, is you have to be better at quarterback. You have to be better at receiver. You have to be better at offensive line. All those position coaches that correspond to those groups need to be better. Play calling needs to be better. So you got a lot to work on. I think that's my last commentary on the game. Like I said, when you lose by 50, it's hard to be well, in the second quarter, the right guard, did this. Who cares? They absolutely destroyed you, and that's pretty much all there is to say.
Yeah, and they are successful throwing to the sideline, which is even more frustrating.
That's going to be one of my off-season projects, because that has kind of worked before.
Yeah.
I remember David Yost at Matt Wells' first game, Montana State. We had a drive where all we did was throw it to the sideline 6 times, and we got 9 yards on each of them and scored. So, you can get more than 1 yard on that play, and I need to go, look at the difference. I don't know if it's how the defense lined up or if we're just bad at executing it. I'm not against that play in theory. I think there's probably a time to run it. But by game 12, if you can't execute that, we have to average 1 yard per play on that. Yeah. I know Xavier White took one a good distance against TCU. Maybe you've had another 1 or 2 like that. But I swear it is either negative 1 yard, 0, or 1 yard on that, 95% of the time you call it. Any commentary on this rivalry now that it's coming to an end in football? I guess you'll still play them in basketball and baseball this year. I'll kick us off. I think that sincerely, and I think even Texas fans will admit this rivalry really started ramping up when they hired Chris Beard. That certainly upped the animosity on Texas Tech's side. And then those 2 games against Chris Beard were electric, both in Lubbock and in Austin. They announced they're leaving the Big 12 the summer after Chris Beard leaves. That kind of creates a whole thing between the Big 12 and the SEC. You beat them in overtime last year in the last football game in Lubbock. There's the post-game locker room speech, the field storming where a Tech student, I think it was a student, pushes a Texas player. And it feels like this rivalry was peaking And you saw evidence of that last night when their players got on Twitter, or Friday night. Their players got on Twitter to, shove it in Joey's face, and clearly, like, their team for all 60 minutes was taking it personally, as Matt Wells might say. Now it's personal. They wanted to run up the score. They wanted to embarrass you. They played Yormark's speech from the Texas Tech kickoff breakfast, or whatever that was back in August. And now it's all over. Like, I know you've played bigger games against him, like in 2008 when both teams were in the top 10 and things like that. But it feels like the last 2.5 years, it has just been elevating and elevating and elevating, kind of reached a crescendo right as you're never going to play him again in football, or at least not for the foreseeable future. That part kind of stinks, because I would like for it to be a real rivalry, like, you have to have maybe not equal animosity on both sides, but there has to be a pretty high level of animosity on both sides. And I don't feel like Texas got there until the last 2.5 years. And now it's all over with. Maybe not such a bad thing, because it does get toxic. Also, if Sark has it rolling and they're going to be one of the best 5 football teams in the country every year, I don't necessarily want to keep going to Austin every other year, if that's going to be the result of it. And I think, zooming out further from just the past 2.5 years or whatever, I think that Texas Tech's administration made the mistake of assuming we're hitched to UT's wagon, we'll go wherever they go in conference realignment, and was kind of all too happy just to be affiliated or associated with Texas. And I think that resulted in us sort of, I don't know, not looking inward enough on what we needed to do as a program, as an athletic department, to reach our maximum potential. And so I'm fine with not playing them anymore, like, at the very least, a cooling off period of a decade, or whatever this winds up being. I think probably someday you'll play them again, whether in conference or out of conference. But I don't know. I think you see some symptoms of what I'm trying to get at among the fan base as well. Like, we did just finish the best 2-year stretch in the last 15 years, the only 2 winning records in conference play, like Rob alluded to. And everybody's pissed off because we lost to Texas. Understandably so. They embarrassed you. And that is your biggest rival remaining on your schedule. But it does feel like very Super Bowl-ish. It's like, oh, we don't care if we go 6-6. If we beat Texas in Lubbock, like, we'll all take that. But you've been that for 65 years. Like, you haven't won an outright conference championship since you joined the same conference as Texas, the Southwest Conference, back in the 60s. And I don't want that for our program. Like, I think those are milestones that you can reach. You can win the Big 12. TCU has a shared Big 12 title. Baylor has multiple. Oklahoma State has one. Kansas State has multiple. Iowa State's played in the Big 12 title game. You can do that. You can go to and win a New Year's Six bowl. Programs that don't have anything more than you have resource-wise have done it, some of them multiple times. And I don't feel like that's ever been our vision or our goal as a program, partly because of the just fixation on Texas. It's not the fans' fault. Like, the fans can't really impact the outcome of a game other than being loud when it's in Lubbock. So I see people saying, like, well, it's good to play in-state rivals. It's good to play teams. Yeah, but, like, it's also good to win your conference. And we have not done that outright since the Eisenhower administration. We've never done that when we were in the same conference as Texas. Not that Texas, like, prevented you directly. Like, they've had teams that didn't even make a bowl game and you still couldn't win the conference. But I think that this new chapter is one where you can turn the page, leave them behind. It's why I also don't want to get fixated on, like, trying to publicly prod them into playing you. Like, they're not going to. So why fixate on that as an administration, as a fan base for the next 5 years, publishing op-eds about how they're scared to play us? And, like, they don't want to play you. Leave them behind and focus on beating Kansas State, Utah, Arizona, West Virginia. Because if you do that, and you do it often enough, you'll do something this program has never done, which is win a, whatever you want to call it, BCS, automatic qualifier, autonomy conference. And that will be a bigger feather in your cap as a program than beating Texas ever has been for you. So in that sense, like, am I going to miss it? Yeah. In the same way I miss playing A&M. Like, I think you ought to play kind of regional rivalries that have decades and decades of history. Sure. But I'm not going to miss it from the other standpoint of, like, you should have different goals as a program. And I think this new page, this new chapter in your history might be good for you in the long run.
Agreed.
So y'all don't want to play them non-con?
No, I don't. And playing them non-con doesn't matter to the last point of your talk there that it would affect a Big 12 championship. You can still win a Big 12 championship and lose to Texas, but yeah, I don't want to play them non-con. I never did. I don't like the administration talking about it, saying they're scared. I just want to move on for a while.
And maybe that's a silver lining of losing by 50. Like, no team that beats another team by 50 is scared to play them again.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like Texas and A&M are more likely to play you if you put some skins on the wall. Like, go win 3 Big 12 titles in the next decade.
Yeah.
Be a perennial top 25 ranked program, make a couple playoffs. And then, like, there will be interest. Like, they'll, I think, probably want to play you.
Yeah, what's the benefit of playing Texas Tech right now for Texas or A&M?
None. They'll just say, well, we don't want to do that because your fans are going to throw batteries at us. If we lose, it's your Super Bowl. If we win, who cares?
Yeah, there's only a downside.
Yeah. But again, like, do your part to make that a compelling game. Become a top 25 program. Like, if Kansas State can do it, you can do it. So I think we should take that route instead. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the Texas game or the rivalry. And it is what it is.
Agreed. Is what it is. It was a great run. It was a great run. Do you know what else is a great run, Kyle?
What's that, Rob?
A ride out to Rahino Barbecue. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, Rahino Barbecue. Hopefully some of our listeners were able to partake in their Thanksgiving offerings. They had ham, turkey, or just your traditional barbecue spread. They have it all out in Olton, Texas. They have the best barbecue in the state of Texas. Hit them up on social media at Rahino BBQ, RahinoBBQ.com. Order ahead. The lines get long. And they've also got the mobile food truck going all across West Texas. Go get you some Rahino barbecue. It is the good stuff. Okay. On to basketball for now until the mailbag. Or do we have any like pre-bowl thoughts, or do you want to talk Big 12 coaching carousel, any of that?
Let's hit a bowl projection. Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, so I don't think you'll go to Houston or Memphis again since you played there each of the last 2 years. What I've seen a lot of smoke around Shreveport at the Independence Bowl. Just to remind folks, the bowls can pick whoever they want. That's why a 3-6 Oklahoma that you beat head-to-head jumped you last year, even though you were 5-4, because they can do that. So they try to pair schools that haven't played in a bowl game in a few years, or, you know, like they'll probably try to keep West Virginia further east, knowing that their fans will travel better there versus in California or somewhere. But looking at the bowl list, my understanding is the bottom two are actually like flex bowl games where the Big 12 only has a tie-in if they have enough teams bowl eligible. And those are the two in DFW, the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth and the Heart of Dallas Bowl, which is not in the heart of Dallas. It's in Frisco, which is in an entirely separate county than Dallas is. So go figure.
Frisco Bowl that they changed to the Heart of Dallas Bowl?
I think so. Am I off base? Ryan, you're our Collin County correspondent here.
I believe you're right. And
anyway,
Toyota Stadium, home of FC Dallas.
Yeah, I think that's that one. The Heart of Dallas, 50 miles north of Dallas. Anyways, so those two I think are like, those are bottom of the barrel, and I think UCF is going to get one of those because UCF has a 3-6 record. Nobody else in the Big 12 even has a 3-6 or 4-5 record that's bowl eligible. So I think UCF is going to get one of those. It's kind of like the last draw. For Texas Tech to avoid the other one, they need to be picked above somebody else that they're like tied with in conference, or that they're actually lower than in the standings, which again, they're allowed to. They can pass up West Virginia and Kansas State and pick Tech if they want to. But it feels like one of those three. So I think you'll get one of the two DFW bowls. if you're the second to last team picked right above UCF, or if you jump somebody, I think you'll jump up to Independence Bowl. I don't think you'll jump any higher than that, though, because that's where you're looking at like Liberty Bowl, Texas Bowl. I don't think they'll send you there. I would say maybe outside shot at the Guaranteed Rate Bowl in Arizona. That used to be the Cactus Bowl. What Tech fans probably know it from is when it was the Insight Bowl, when you completed the record comeback against Minnesota. You might go there, but it feels like Shreveport or DFW at this point, based on all the kind of projections I've seen out there.
Yeah,
and where you're slotted.
The First Responders Bowl, which is also in DFW at SMU Stadium.
Okay, maybe there's Heart of Dallas and a First Responders Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's one you're thinking of.
Okay, yeah.
And then I saw somebody on ESPN say the Camellia Bowl, which is in Alabama, but I don't know how that ties into the Big 12 stuff.
Yeah, I would be surprised if that's a tie-in, because there's, I think, 9 bowl eligible teams. There's 7 bowl games, and then, like I said, those 2 flex ones in DFW. So all 9 teams, whether Texas makes the playoff or not, should slot into those 9. I'm pretty sure.
Agreed.
I'm going Independence Bowl and a Holiday Bowl rematch against Cal. I want that to be it.
I've seen that projected. That would be awesome.
Maybe Sonny can move down the road from Ruston to Shreveport for that one and suit up for us. Take care of Cal one last time.
Or just put on a headset, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. That one, the weird thing about Shreveport, if you go there, it's really early in bowl season. It's, usually the later the bowl, the better. That one's December 16th, even though it's a higher bowl slot than the 2 DFW bowls, which are closer to Christmas. So if we do get sent to Shreveport, it's going to be like a quick turnaround. Like Sunday when they announce the bowl games, I think you'd only have, 10 days or so, maybe a little more than that. So quick turnaround if it is Shreveport. And I've said this before, but my main thing is I just want to play a Power 5 opponent. I don't really care whether it's Fort Worth, Dallas, or Shreveport. No offense to any of these schools. I don't want to play Troy. I really don't want to play a Service Academy. I think that's a terrible matchup for you. And I talked about that on Gouches After Dark last night, but I can just see them going 14-play scoring drive, you tempo into a 3-and-out, and then you lose time of possession 51-9. Like, I don't want any part of that. And so I really hope we don't get Air Force or someone like that in the bowl game. That would not be good, I don't think.
Air Force is number 1 in passing yards per completion this year.
I believe it.
With 7 pass completions a game?
Wait till they put 9 men in the box, play action, and hit them over the top. They probably have more pass plays for, 40-plus yards than just about anybody.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful game. All right, basketball?
Yeah.
Do you feel better or worse about the Texas Tech basketball team post-Atlanta's tournament? Money?
That is a tough question because it feels greedy to say worse after 2 wins, one against a good Michigan team. Like, that Michigan team is higher in KenPom right now than Butler is, who you'll play next. Just 2 spots higher, but still a competitive basketball team, no doubt. And so you get a really convincing win against Michigan and then a nail biter against Northern Iowa. I think the one thing that you feel really good about is you saw an increase in your shot making, specifically in that Villanova game. I think you made 14 threes, which is pretty crazy. Even just thinking about, the final score ending up at 85-69 and thinking about what that would have looked like had Tech shot the ball the way that they had, the past couple of games. But obviously, playing faster, going to lead to more possessions on both ends of the floor. But it was almost like with the increased shot making, the half-court offense wasn't as systematic and programmed as it has been at times this season. I think that led to some chaos in that Villanova game. I think they had 15 turnovers, which is one of your highest marks of the season. But in that Villanova UNI game, you had 2 really bad defensive showings. I think you were over 105 in adjusted defensive efficiency in both of those. So, that's not what Grant McCaslin has put on the tape in the early part of the season. Obviously, these are much higher quality opponents, but overall, I think you're feeling good about getting 2 wins. It's always a good thing, especially when you're a team that's still kind of trying to figure yourself out and how to play all together. This is a really uniquely constructed roster. I don't even think we've really gotten to the core of just how complicated and interesting it's going to be to follow this team throughout the season. But I think this team is going to live and die by their half court offense. The defense is good. I think it's good enough to have some really good showings in the Big 12. I don't know if it's going to be enough to carry you through a lot of, 58, 53 type games this season. I think you're going to need some really good half court offensive schemes and just some sort of spacing and shot making that you can do at a consistent level. And so, honestly, it kind of feels like a cop-out answer, but I think I feel neutral about leaving Atlantis with 2 wins. Obviously, 2 good quality wins. Those are really good things. I would feel a lot worse if you were 0-3. I just think you're still waiting for the half-court offense to come around, and you play your first true road game against a really, really good Butler team on Thursday, and you don't want to go into Hinkle not knowing what you want to do offensively.
I've got 2 takes, and I want y'all's thoughts on them. The first one, you played 6 halves of basketball. I would argue your 2 best halves were the last 2 you played. Your third best half was the third to last half that you played. So it's easy to make a case that you trended up all weekend, or all week. I guess it was a Wednesday through Friday deal. And maybe that was luck. Maybe that was like filling out the gym and, just making more shots. Or maybe that was chemistry and learning what you have and figuring some stuff out. 2, kind of a related point. Isn't this why we wanted them to play legitimate competition in November, so that you're not going into the final weekend of December starting Big 12 play asking the same thing, do we know what we have? I would rather go into Butler feeling like you kind of know after a solid tournament and playing a couple of quad 3 type opponents instead of Southwest Massachusetts Community College. And so, yeah, you're going to take your lumps when you schedule harder. But I would rather learn from a loss against Villanova in November than learn from a loss against TCU in late December when the conference standings start counting. And so you kind of have to take the good with the bad when you schedule the non-con like this. So I was actually happy with 2-1. You lose to the eventual tournament champion. That's a good team, good Villanova team. You weren't ready to beat them in November. Maybe by February, you might be able to beat a team of that caliber. But I think you can only start building up to that if you test yourself like this early in the season. So I'm win or lose, I'm looking forward to the Butler game because, again, I think that's a good look. That's a Big 12 caliber opponent, depending on where you're looking in the Big 12 standings. So I just love that we're playing a bunch of these, and could be ugly sometimes, but I think that's how you learn and give yourself a shot to make the tournament later in the season.
Yeah, after losing to Villanova, I was feeling not down about the team, but like you weren't going to have a better option there. But then Villanova hammered Memphis, and I thought, they're pretty good. They beat North Carolina, hammered Memphis, just like they hammered you in the second half. And I thought you were more competitive against Villanova than Memphis was for the whole game. So I was relieved. I think you almost let Villanova beat you twice with UNI, which was frustrating, but you got to win, and that's what happens. You have to do that in the Big 12 all the time. You can't let a team beat you twice. And then you moved on and hammered Michigan. So that was fun. Beating Michigan and getting Juwan Howard thrown out of the game he wasn't even coaching in was even better. So I would say there are certainly some things that I'm still frustrated with, rotation-wise. Kerwin Walton getting some big minutes in big spots there in the tournament, which was interesting. Still frustrated with Warren Washington and some of the stuff he's doing inside. He's either really good or a little bit frustrating, baffling at times in what he's doing. But I would say above worse. So maybe not neutral like money, but certainly not feeling like way better about the team leaving Atlantis.
I feel better, like by a marginal amount. Well, maybe because I left the Villanova game and I was the same way as you. When I was watching that, I was like, we can't score, and if we don't win games 55-52, we're not going to win them. And then you kind of saw the second half, and I was thinking the same thing in the first half against Northern Iowa. And I was watching that game right as we were about to eat, and my wife is like, just remember, our family's here. We have a lot to be thankful for, even if Tech isn't good at basketball. I was like, get out of here with that. And then they turned it on in the second half. I was like, okay, maybe that was lucky. And then you beat Michigan wire to wire with a double-digit lead the whole game. And like Ryan said, that's a good team. And so I was like, okay, maybe we just use this week to get a lot better. So after Villanova, I was like, we might not win many conference games. Not a bubble team I kind of thought was a reasonable goal coming in. But then after the last three halves, I was like, okay, maybe we found something. And I guess we'll know after we play Butler, if that was a flash in the pan or if we're actually going to be that tough and competitive. But I would say overall, I left the tournament feeling a lot better. Also comparing it to the football game later that day, I was like, oh, thank God for basketball,
Yeah. Yeah, that made you feel a little bit better, and you can kind of go back to it and say, well, it's basketball season.
I think that's what I'm going to do when I go to work tomorrow, and my UT coworkers will be like, Friday's game, what are you talking about? We beat Michigan. It was awesome. I don't know. Was there a football game? I thought they didn't play on Thanksgiving, The
Lady Raiders went 2-0 as well. They're 7-0.
Yeah.
Beat Rutgers and Santa Clara. Okay. Anything specific about the team or the rotations that you saw, Money? Because there was some momentum with small ball, I would say.
Yeah, you mentioned it in your, initial thoughts about just the bench in general. That's obviously a massive question for this team right now. I think they're a deep team. On paper, there are a number of guys who I think can play Big 12 minutes. Does that look like 25 plus minutes a game? Probably not. But at least, a handful of guys that can give you, 8, 7, 6 minutes a night and not just be a complete negative. But so far, the rotation has been really short. And in those last two games, you got almost nothing from your bench. I think you got 6 points against UNI off the bench. And I think you got 5 versus Michigan, which again, it's a blowout. Obviously your starters are going to have to play well, but it's a blowout. Your bench in that garbage time minutes, they should be at least, able to put the ball in the basket. But I think that's a huge question mark for this team. I saw a question about small ball in the comments. I think Grant McCasland is finding something with that. The first couple of games in the season, really heavy on Warren Washington, running a true, center type player, which is not something that we've kind of gotten accustomed to with Texas Tech basketball. It's kind of been like a guy that can play in the perimeter. And then, even when you had one like a Norin Sodiase, it was only 15 to 20 minutes a night. Looked like Warren Washington was going to be a little bit heavier than that. But over the last 5 games, Texas Tech's second most used lineup is Isaacs, Toussaint, McMillan, Cambridge, and Williams. So, bringing Cambridge in and letting him play the 5, adding McMillan with his ability to shoot the 3 and also just put the ball on the floor. I think they've found something with that lineup. And I think we would have seen a lot more of it. I think it was in the Villanova game. All 3 of those games were so close together that they're kind of getting scrambled, where Cambridge had the technical foul where he kicked a player where they were on the court. He was banished from the first half of the game after that. McCasland did not check him back in. It was 20 seconds into a possession where he had just checked in as the small ball 5. They want to use it more, and I think it's going to be something that you see throughout Big 12 play, because when you're not scoring the ball well, you've got to just try to create chaos. If you cannot shoot the ball, it doesn't do you any good to have a guy anchored down low to clean up your misses. You need to create offense. You need to have good cuts near the baseline. You need to have action offensively. You need to run the pick and roll. And that's just kind of what it is for this team right now, is just figuring out what you do in the half court offensively to give you a spark if shots aren't going down. Again, There was some of that in the Villanova game. I still don't think there's a large enough sample size to say this is a terrible 3-point shooting team, but it's pretty clear that they're not going to be a great one. And, with that in mind, you've got to try something else to generate space to get to the basket, because when you just kind of keep running 4 out, pick and roll every single possession, you get a little stale, you get a little predictable, and it doesn't really help you when you aren't making shots. And so I think that's the biggest thing right now, is figuring out what to do in the half court. But that small ball lineup, I think Gas likes it a lot. And I think we're just going to keep seeing more and more of it. I think they've run it for like 5% or 8% of their total minutes the last 5 games. The starting 5 with Washington is at about 20% of their total minutes over the last 5 games. So on the up, and I think it's going to keep trending that way.
I think it was also pretty clear watching the tournament. Some guys are basically just not in the rotation, maybe unless we're playing one of those quad 4 type games, or you're either winning or losing by 25. But I didn't see every minute of every game, but the ones I watched saw very little or zero of Kyron Lindsay, Drew Steff, Bob Jennings, Demarion Williams. And so, the more guys you list off here, the more you're like, okay, maybe we have an 8-man rotation once we get to Big 12 play. And that's a lot of minutes for those guys on kind of a meat grinder of a schedule. But tell me if you disagree, but it seems like we're already kind of learning which guys aren't going to factor into conference play games.
Well, I will say Steph's going to redshirt. I think that's pretty much public knowledge at this point. I think that's out there. And then Lindsay will probably be a redshirt as well. McCaslin had a quote in a post-game press conference a few games back where he essentially mentioned like, hey, we're trying to figure out how to put these guys in the best situation possible, almost essentially saying, if we can redshirt them, we will. And so I think the option is still, if this continues to be this bad offensively from the perimeter, like maybe, let Drew Steff get some reps, but I would not expect to see those guys very much or at all this season. But Robert Jennings, man, like we talked about it a little bit on the last podcast, it is going to be so important to see what happens with him this year. I mean, even in that first half of the Villanova game, I was tracking the minutes. Like, I think he played 1 minute in that first half of the Villanova game. And like Washington had that personal foul. I think it was a technical as well that got him in trouble. And, the small ball 5, even, Cambridge getting benched with the technical, just still didn't see a lot of him. And so I'm still kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the front court, because the reality is you run a 7-footer like Warren Washington a lot of minutes in the Big 12, those fouls are going to start racking up quickly. And they have for him. And it's just part of being a 7-footer trying to, defend ball handlers in college basketball. But that front court, I mean, you really are going to have to see more of Robert Jennings for this team to at least, be competitive in the Big 12. But I mean, especially if you want to start looking forward to, March and tournaments. And I know this was one where Tech kind of rallied down the stretch, but when you're playing tournament games, you kind of need every guy to play their role and to really fit the bill as best they can.
Are you surprised at how little run Demarion Williams is getting? I mean, this is a guy who was brought in last year. It was kind of viewed as a pretty experienced player. Didn't play a ton last year, but had a role. And a guy who shot, I think, 38-ish% like at volume from 3 in his career. Seems like the kind of guy we might need if we are going to continue shooting a ton of threes, and so far not making a lot of those. I'm a little surprised he hasn't worked into the rotation more. Are you?
Yeah, I think the guard room is so crowded right now that it's really coming down to, okay, what net impact are guys having when they're on the floor? And obviously, as you mentioned, like Demarion Williams, great shooter. Like that was kind of his bread and butter last season. And so, if that's how he's going to provide a net positive impact, I think, you'll start seeing him get more of those minutes. But then it's like, I look at things like Kerwin Walton getting that much burn, and it's like, okay, well, that's kind of his thing too, is like, this is just kind of your catch and shoot guy. This is how he makes a living, make a couple of shots in the half court offense a game, and then don't get run over defensively. So he's kind of absorbing a lot of those minutes right now. And so I'm a little surprised. I think maybe just by the sheer fact that he's only played 6 minutes this season. I kind of had to double check that real quick because it almost didn't even sound right. But it is a crowded guard room. I think, it comes down to what you do in practice. Can you provide consistent impact outside of, just doing what you do, which he shoots the ball well, and he did it well for Tech at some key moments last season.
I did not know he was on the roster. Damarian Williams. I thought he left. I mean, he had just been a non-factor.
Yeah, still here.
Still here. And I looked back at the Michigan box score. You only played 8 guys, and Lamar Washington only got 3 minutes. And that's a blowout wire to wire, basically. And you're just playing 7 guys. Interesting. That was an interesting game to me. That Joe Toussaint played 39 minutes and Darian Williams played 38. And they never left the floor, and nobody else came in.
That good segue, Rob, because I wanted to talk real quick about Darian Williams. Kind of just a do-it-all guy right in the middle of your lineup. I've seen him listed as a guard. I mean, to me, he's your 3 or your small forward. He runs the floor. He can rebound. He can pass. He can score a little bit. I don't think he's like an elite scorer or anything. I don't think you really have any of those, maybe besides Pop Isaacs. But he might be the most important player on the team just from the standpoint of taking up one of the 5 spots on the floor and is definitely, I think, has the best all-around game. You saw that in some of his stats last year as a freshman at Nevada. I don't know. And I think you're starting to see some of that here. Like, you always kind of wonder, can they make the jump from Mountain West is a really good basketball conference too, but can he make the jump to Power 6 kind of level play? So far, I mean, especially this week, it seems like he really turned it on, and he might be your best player overall. He might be your most important player, however you want to phrase it. But I really liked what I saw from him, and I think he's going to be a key piece going forward.
I mean, what we were just talking about, right? Net positive impact. What do you do on the floor that earns you your minutes and contributes to your team winning? Like, that is everything that Darian Williams does. I mean, he has been really, really good pickup for this team throughout the season. When I saw him in Denton, I was sitting like, I think 2 rows back from the court, and it was like, man, this guy's huge. Like, this guy looks like an NBA player. Out of all the guys on the floor, that was the guy where it was pretty clear, like, this guy's an athlete. This guy is built to play this game at a really high level, and that's paying off so far. Like, he leads the team in rebounds right now. He's top 6 in assists, leads the team in steals, is 2nd in blocks, and is 3rd in points scored. Like, he is all over the box score, and he is a really good on-ball defender, even when it's not resulting in a steal. And so, man, he's going to be really, really key for Texas Tech. And we talked about, like, I don't even want to use this phrase because it kind of makes the hairs on the back of my neck stick up. But you want to talk about glue guys, or just guys that are content with going out there, doing their job, and finding any way to help their team win basketball games. Like, that is Darian Williams. He's done a little bit of everything this season, and I think it's going to continue to be that way. But man, he's gonna play a lot of minutes for this team. I think he's 3rd right now behind Isaacs and Toussaint, who I imagine will finish the season as, the minutes played leaders, barring injury. But he's been good. And as you're trying to figure out some of what's going on in the half court, and even with your primary ball handlers, he's been a really important guy to have on the roster the last couple of weeks.
He's trending toward an important distinction, which is my favorite player on the entire team. So if he keeps it up, he's going to maintain that status. And I know that's a big notch in his belt.
They hang that in the rafters, man. Kyle Jameson's favorite player.
That's right.
All right. Any final thoughts or any look ahead thoughts to Butler? I guess we'll talk about him Wednesday.
So I think you've got to make shots, which feels a little redundant at this point, but you've just got to. Butler's a good team. You got to make shots, especially in a place like Hinkle, which is a crazy place to play. And I mean, this has got to be a game where I think Pop Isaacs has a really efficient day. I think these last couple of games in Atlantis have kind of left you wanting more. And that's not me trying to, be hard on him, but this is a really good basketball player. This is an all Big 12 caliber basketball player. I feel really confident about that. I think it's just hitting his stride at the right time and figuring out how to maximize the scheme around him. I don't think Texas Tech has done that yet. It's going to take time. I'm sure of that. It's not a knock on Gas or the roster as a whole. It's just, it takes time figuring out how to run as many guards as you do, especially a guy like Toussaint, who has primarily had the ball in his hands for most of his collegiate career, right next to a guy that kind of made his living by scoring with the ball in his hands last year, which was Pop Isaacs. And so I think you're still trying to find the balance between the two of them. But I mean, Pop clearly has the potential to be this team's best player. I think you just want to see more efficiency and just more consistency throughout the game. I think, there will be some help on the coaching side that allows him to do that. I would be very surprised if we don't see more off-ball looks for him or, some brush screens, some baseline cuts. I really do think the key to kind of taking a load off his shoulder is just getting him off the ball a little bit more, allowing Toussaint to create some of that dribble penetration and getting some space for Isaacs. But he's good, man. The talent is there. Like we saw it last season. It's there. I saw it in Denton against A&M. He took over that game, even being forced to the bench with 4 fouls because Doug Sermons had kind of taken over the game as well. But he's got the talent. I think it's just maximizing him in the scheme you have now and figuring out how to make it work when the ball's not in his hands.
Keep shooting.
Oh yeah, I'm all for it, and it's gonna scratch some heads, and I get it. Like he's pretty much dead last in field goal percentage right now, but man, they've got to start going in. You just don't have a scorer like him on your roster. He's the only guy, and I think that's true for a lot of Big 12 teams.
Butler right now, according to BPI, has about a 68% chance to win. So if the betting market corresponds closely, they'd be about a 2-1 favorite. We'll see what – usually college basketball lines don't get posted until the day before. So we'll see how that winds up. But you're going to be an underdog on the road. Good offense, it looks like. Butler average 82 points per game. And so it's going to be a good test for your defense for sure. They did get blown out by Michigan State, so maybe they're not like world beaters. But I feel like every college basketball team at this point in the season only has small sample sizes to work with, and they probably feel like they're going to learn just as much about themselves as Texas Tech feels like they're going to learn about their team. So looking forward to it. I'm glad to be playing them. It's better than playing Georgetown under Patrick Ewing.
Absolutely. Butler right now projected as a 71 to 69 point win by Ken Palm.
Okay, so they probably got it narrower than BPI has it.
Really close. Probably right around 66, 67.
Okay, interesting.
Interesting indeed. Ready for a mailbag?
Yeah, let's do it.
The Matador Transit mailbag.
You've got mail.
Mail time.
The mail's here. Come on.
I found these in my mailbag.
Well, it's time to reach into the old mailbag here.
Enjoy reading the fan mail. Don't read it all at once.
Any mail for me? You don't have a Tic Tac, do you?
Did I get any mail?
No. Why not, honey?
This is not in the mailbag, but did you guys see the fans of Mississippi State carrying the AD on their shoulders because of the Jeff Lebby hire?
No.
I saw Adi Radosevich retweet it. So you have to go look at his feed to find it. But I think that's what's happening. The carrying of on the shoulders, like a big game just happened.
That wasn't like an AI generated video.
It might have been. We'll have to go find it again to look at it.
I mean, OU scores a lot of points, but also it's Jeff Lebby. It's not Nick Saban.
Well, they got Art Briles too, so where Jeff Lebby goes, Art Briles goes.
Good for them, I guess.
Let me ask this out of the mailbag too. Grade these hires, Jeff Lebby. Quick grade on Jeff Lebby.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna compare it to somebody else, like start bench cut format.
Well, I've got one more, so I didn't have three.
I think that's a I think that's a B+ hire for Mississippi State. I don't think there's a lot of downside.
Yeah.
Good upside if he gets it rolling. So
I'll go B-.
And then Mike Elko, who allegedly has been hired at A&M.
difficult one to grade because it's A&M.
He's back.
I think he's a good coach. Like, I thought after what he's done at Duke the last 2 years, he was going to have good opportunities. I also feel like A&M thought they were going to get, Nick Saban with Kirby Smart as defensive coordinator. And then they did the Mark Stoops test balloon, went over horribly. So I'm not really convinced that Elko was their top choice. I think he's going to be a victim of insane expectations. He's a good coach, though. So I'll say another B+.
Higher than I would have graded Stoops.
Mark Stoops, in his tweet about not leaving, said not leaving right now. He wants to leave Kentucky. If Ferentz gets fired, he's going to go to Iowa.
Okay, one, Ferentz isn't going to get fired, but two, they're paying you $9 million a year to get 5th place in the SEC East. Just stay there.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll do it for half that.
So would I. Should we be afraid of Shuck transferring to another Big 12 school and then proceeding to have the year of his life?
Alan Bowman 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean,
go Shuck. If he goes and wins a Big 12 championship somewhere else, good for him. I don't think that'll happen.
if he does it at like Arizona State, that's fine with me. If he does it at like Baylor, But yeah, no, I'm pulling for him. I hope he goes out of conference because it'll make him easier to pull for. I kind of wonder if he's going. I'm just totally guessing here, but if he's going back toward home, which is Phoenix area, so Arizona State or maybe even like a Mountain West program.
Maybe he could play for Jeff Levy. A lot of people talk about Die Hard being a Christmas movie, but First Blood was the first 80s Christmas action movie. Thoughts on Rambo being a Christmas movie? No thoughts? Okay.
Not really.
What is tougher for Patrick Mahomes, playing with no defense at Texas Tech or no receivers at the Chiefs?
I mean, I saw Patrick Mahomes lose a game 66-10 to a 3-8 Iowa State squad. So they might not win the Super Bowl this year because he doesn't have receivers, but it's not going to be that bad. So I think his current situation is more preferable.
They're still winning games.
Yeah. Beat a good team today. Well, I don't know if they're a good team, but they beat a team today. They covered. Would this year's Texas team beat last year's Texas Tech team by 28? Yes.
Is that how we're going to redo the offseason hype? Like,
yeah,
spring ball, we're going to say this year's team would only lose to Texas by 47.
Yeah. By the way, Texas in back-to-back weeks took to Twitter to talk trash to their opponents. Does Oklahoma State just shut their mouths and not say anything this week, and then that kind of kills what Texas momentum is? Because they were very mad about that guy talking from Iowa State. And then they were very mad, obviously, at Joey McGuire for saying private things in a locker room.
I don't know. I do think if you do that, you open yourself up to like last year when TCU beat Tech, nobody in their athletic department took the high road. Like their AD was chirping at Tech fans, which is crazy to me. Like you're a little AD and you're, tweeting cactus emojis. Their coaching staff and, I don't know if anybody – I don't think any Tech coaches or admins did it this year, but it's like if Kirby wanted to get on and like do a, cry more tweet to Jeremiah Donati or whatever, like he would have had every right to do it. It would have been self-defense, but like Kirby's never going to tweet that. And so I just feel like if you're going to do that after every win, Like, you better win out, because if Georgia beats you by 20 in the playoffs, like, people are probably going to come for you on Twitter because you've made that part of your shtick.
What would the line be for Tech at Penn basketball? Money? Do you have any thoughts there? No idea. Did Penn do
Tech
something?
6-point favorites. They beat Villanova
Oh, they beat
before Atlantis.
Okay. Yeah, that seems like a fluke at this point. Also, Brennan Hostin seemed really happy to be shooting against Texas Tech.
He did more than just shoot.
Yeah, he tackled a guy. Yeah, dove at his knees. Christmas two-parter. When does Christmas season start for you? And it's not Christmas until you see what movie/show?
Ryan, are you a big Christmas guy?
I feel like I don't have rules and regulations of when I start. So like I've been listening to Christmas music for like the past week and a half, but this is the first place that I've lived in by myself completely, and I just bought my first Christmas tree today. So maybe
Nice.
it starts the weekend after Thanksgiving, as I feel like is a typical rule of thumb, but I say there's no rules.
Here's the situation as a husband and father who's like a lot of the decor, like at least the bulky items, like that falls on me to get the crap out of the attic, put it up on the roof, or whatever. My wife does like the interior stuff. So you have to commit. You have a decision to make in November. If you put all the fall decorations out, you can keep them through November, like after Halloween. You have to put like the jack-o'-lanterns away, but like anything that's leafy or kind of fall colors, that can stay out all the way through November. Or you can pivot immediately after Halloween and commit to Christmas. Because if you're going to go get up on the roof and hang Christmas lights, you don't want to do it just for like 4 weeks. You want to maximize that. So I don't fault anybody for either decision. I mean, I am a Thanksgiving respecter and observer of that holiday. And so I usually don't pivot to Christmas till the weekend after Thanksgiving. So I just put the lights and everything out today. But I feel like that's the decision everybody has to make if they have a bunch of decorations, is like, what are we doing with November? Because we can commit to Christmas in November. I don't think that's out of pocket. I don't do that. Or we can commit to just keeping the fall decorations from October up. But the worst thing you can do is just kind of like middle it and jump the gun on Christmas before Thanksgiving, but not put your decorations out till like the week of Thanksgiving. That's just like, you got to commit one way or the other in the month of November is how I see it.
Yeah, I'm leaning toward the no rules thing. It's Christmas when you want it to be Christmas, so I don't care what people do. Are any favorite movies you watched to strike the Christmas mood?
I really like Home Alone.
It's a good one.
Kind of a classic for 90s kids.
The Santa Claus is a go-to for me. I watch the Santa Claus every year, at least one of them. And now they have the Santa Claus show on Disney Plus that I've not seen. I'm a big Tim Allen guy, I guess. Ryan, any shows you watch every year? Love Actually?
Oh yeah. No, not a big movie guy. I'll sit this one out.
All right.
Hey, they don't call him Movie Mainville.
That's right.
I'm too focused on Butler. Why would I watch movies when I can watch film?
Amen. Start bench cut, sweet potato casserole, stuffing, and cranberry sauce.
Cut.
I would start dressing and not stuffing, but I'm in on dressing.
Also starting dressing - stuffing.
Yeah. I would cut sweet potato casserole and bench cranberry sauce, I guess. You don't like cranberry sauce, Kyle? You're not plopping it out of the can and getting you a slice?
I'm not touching any of that.
Okay.
I would start Cranberries the band, bench Cranberries the fruit, and cut cranberry sauce.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? It's a movie set at Christmas. Have you seen Die Hard, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, you guys, since y'all are no rules about Christmas, then like anything's a Christmas movie, right? If you want it to be.
It's literally at a Christmas party.
but like it could be September they just have the Christmas decorations up because you can start Christmas whenever, right?
It's not this. It's Christmas.
But theoretically, like we're arguing principles here. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? It's a philosophical question.
Yes, it's a Christmas movie. You learn a valuable lesson about Christmas in it. Don't you?
Sure. Yeah. All I remember from that movie is yippee-ki-yay, mother sucker.
Yeah.
And then he shoots himself through his own shoulder.
Yeah. Walking on the glass,
Pretty awesome.
calling through the vents. And the whole Christmas party that starts the movie. When traveling across West Texas, do you ever find yourself preferring a 2-lane FM back road over a 4-lane highway? No. I'm an I-20 guy.
Yeah, there's too many trucks out there. You got to pass, and I don't like passing on just a 2-lane road.
Start, bench, cut, Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2, or Christmas Vacation? Cutting Christmas Vacation.
Put whoever asked about Christmas Vacation in a permanent timeout. There's no room for that here. Way over the line.
Does everyone know you hate Christmas Vacation? I think that's pretty well.
People latched onto that a couple years ago when I came out publicly as anti-Christmas Vacation.
Yeah. So do you have a Home Alone preference? Donald Trump's in the second one, so you're probably starting that one, huh?
One of the funniest memes when Trump was running for president was like, this man let a child just, get lost without his parents in New York. Like, he can't be trusted. No, I like 1, 2, and 3. I think like most sequels, they get worse the further removed from the original you get.
Agreed. Do you still believe the ceiling for this men's team is a Sweet 16?
Who's you in this question?
Apparently, this is what we said the ceiling was a few episodes ago.
I think I did say that.
I think we all agreed that would be a ceiling money.
Yeah, I would say as a true ceiling, like that's the absolute best you're going to get out of this team. I would still say, yeah, you've got a shot at getting 2 wins in March. Like the defense and what Grant McCaslin does in late season tournaments. Like, yeah, I still feel good about that. As a realistic ceiling, talk to me again in a few weeks.
I think the logic behind that as a ceiling was like if you win the 11-6 game, which I don't think is out. Like if you make the tournament as an 11 coming out of the Big 12, you can beat a 6 seed. Like that's just who you played in conference all year. And then if there was like an upset round 2 where you get if you're the 11, it'd be a 14, or if you pull off an upset against a 3, again, you're going to play plenty of 3 seed caliber teams in conference play. So like, is it likely? No, but could you do it? Sure. To me, that's like winning 2 Big 12 games in a row.
What is the best country Christmas song?
I don't like country editions of Christmas carols. I'm not an anti-country music guy, but I don't know. I feel like most of the artists who do Christmas carols are artists I don't care for already, and so I don't like their versions of Christmas carols.
Wow. What about Pretty Paper, Willie Nelson?
Yeah, like I like Willie Nelson, but like I heard a Dolly Parton one, and I guess that's sacrilegious now because Dolly Parton is randomly really popular again. Nails on a Chalkboard to me, like the Blake Shelton Christmas, like it's terrible.
Wow.
So I don't want to hear those versions of those songs. Like just give me the original.
George Strait Christmas albums, Christmas cookies.
I could live with that.
Okay.
You just wowed my Dolly Parton take. Do you want to tell the people how you feel about George Strait?
What about him?
Big whoop, right? The king.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah, I love Johnny Cash.
I think he was good in the 80s, George Strait. I think he kind of fell off a little bit. Doesn't write any of his own music. Taylor Swift does.
He fell off from like the most successful country musician of all time.
You talking about
tough scene?
You talking about Garth?
I guess Garth Brooks probably did break a bunch of George Strait's records.
Let's see. Start, bench, cut. There's a lot of Christmas stuff in this one. Start bench cut REK's Merry Christmas from the Family, Hayes Carl's Great for Christmas, and John Prine's Christmas in Prison. I don't know that I could pull those out of my brain to rate them.
Same.
Robert Earl Keen. I'd probably start John Prine and bench Robert Earl Keen, but I don't know the songs. Sorry, T Pope. Start bench cut Thanksgiving 2023 happenings. Going band in the Macy's Parade. Men's comeback against UNI, or Dolly Parton as a Cowboys cheerleader. Oh, there's
Kind
a
of-
process. Jordan Brooks pick 6 in a blowout.
Kind of tipped my hand earlier with the Dolly Parton take. I didn't see this question, but
So you're going to
yeah,
cut
that
Dolly
was
Parton.
yeah. Going band in New York's pretty special.
That
So
was awesome.
I'll start that bench the UNI comeback, but that was also pretty sweet. And by a mile, I'm cutting Dolly Parton's halftime performance.
By a mile.
By a mile.
Definitely starting New York City. Even just being like on the Today Show the day before that, having the pep rally in Times Square. Like I had coworkers that are tech alums that were like sending me stuff. And are like, hey, this is really cool. Like it's a cool thing for your university to be a part of.
I got so lucky on Thanksgiving. I had just gotten to the TV for the first time all morning, flipped it on, and like the shot was on the going band, and they were introduced like, this is the band from Texas Tech. I was like, sweet, because I don't know how long the whole parade broadcast is, like 4 hours, and they're probably only going to get like 5 or 10 minutes of airtime. So I got really lucky, but I was able to catch it. It's pretty cool to see.
And the medley was awesome. The whatever they call it, the mashup. Will Rogers or Baron Morton? This is kind of an interesting question. Would you accept a transfer in at quarterback to battle Baron Morton?
See, I would accept the first half of your question. I think Baron Morton should go into next season as a starter. What I would like is kind of like Retzlaff at BYU. He was like a highly touted JUCO guy. They didn't bring him in to compete with Slovis, but quality backup. And then when they made the change, he was ready to play. So, or like kind of a gadget player at quarterback that could give you some backup reps, but also maybe play like a Donovan Smith role where if we go back to like some 2 quarterback looks or short yardage, kind of wildcat formation type stuff. I do think you need depth there. You know, having Jake Strong and Will Hammond as the only backups, that's just a lot of youth. So, yeah, I would like to bring in a McLean Carter type guy that you're not saying, hey, you're going to be the starter. It's not really coming here to compete for the starting job. You're saying, like, to step up from FCS or JUCO, and you're one play away.
It's a tough question just because of how much volume is on Rodgers. Like I think he threw for 9,000 passing yards in 22 and 21. Like that is nuts.
There's a bunch of SEC records. He might stay with Levy.
Yeah, like on a guy like Will Rogers specifically, if you're telling me like you can bring in a bona fide Power 5 starter who can play in this system, like I'm not going to say no to that. But I don't think you need to prioritize it and say, like, we need to go find a starting quarterback. Like, I think you have that. But I also don't think you should turn somebody away. If they enter the portal and then reach out to our coaches and say, I want to come to Texas Tech, then if it's a guy like that, I'm certainly in favor of taking him.
If you could beat one head coach's ass with no repercussions, who would it be? I would say Eli Dorkowitz.
Yeah. Man, I probably didn't feel this way until Friday, but probably Sark.
Yeah.
Just because of all the extracurriculars. Like, okay, beat our ass, fine. Like, you're the better team. But then, like, and this probably isn't all on him, but like the scoreboard, playing the Yormark video and like his players going on Twitter. Maybe none of that is on him, but
yeah, the Toy Story video.
I didn't see that.
They did a Toy Story video where Texas Tech is it's Toy Story 4, I guess, where he's leaving with the toys. Andy's leaving to college, and they're all sitting on the porch, and they say, "So long, partner." They were Texas, and Andy was Texas Tech. You missed that one?
Yeah, didn't see that.
Fair enough. Bunny, you beating anybody up? Any basketball coaches you want to beat up? Jamie Dixon?
I didn't even think about basketball. Jamie Dixon's a good one. Buzz Williams was kind of noisy in the scrimmage. Sweaty guy too, man.
Yeah.
Very sweaty guy.
As sweaty as who was it? Bruce Pearl? Sean Miller? Oh, it was Sean Miller who sweat through his shirts. Was TCU being in the national championship last season the most Mickey Mouse thing ever?
Kind of seems like it. Have y'all seen the theory floated that they kind of like reversed the sign stealing thing on Michigan, and that like, I'm making this up, but like if you hold up 3 fingers, that means like we're gonna do
Yeah.
like a wheel route. And so they hold up 3 fingers, but TCU made an adjustment the week before Michigan, like show them a wheel route look and then bend over the middle for a post route. And so they were just doing the exact opposite of what they were signaling to Michigan they were going to do. I kind of believe that because like Ohio State and Michigan were right there next to each other. And then Ohio State almost beat Georgia, you remember, in the semifinal. So I think those were like clearly the 3 best teams. And TCU, like that's what TCU's been able to claim is like, sure, we got killed by Georgia, but we beat Michigan. And so like we're legit. But if they beat Michigan by doing that, not that it's like against the rules or anything, it kind of does like, well, could you have beaten them straight up if nobody knew anybody's signals or thought they knew anybody's signals? Or would you have lost to Michigan just as badly as you lost to Georgia?
Do we want to take offensive coordinator candidate questions, or do we want to skip some of those? Can we talk about the season?
No, we'll field these questions.
Okay, asking on behalf of Smart Football, give me your realistic offensive coordinator choice to replace Kitley.
If he's going to be replaced, which I don't concede is going to be the case. And I think you could maybe go get this guy if you're willing to fork over some money, and if he's willing to take a co-offensive coordinator role. But I would totally go get UNLV's offensive coordinator. He runs a really innovative, like a spread run offense. I think it could pair well with a lot of the schemes Kitley does. They would have to work well together and like game plan together. But I think he'd be a great co-OC / run game coordinator. You know, he could coach the running backs or whatever, and then like move Kenny Perry to special teams full time or something. I would love to see that. I think it would pair well together. And he's the guy who's kind of quickly ascended through the ranks of like position coach, offensive coordinator. I think UNLV is playing for the Mountain West Conference Championship, and they've been dog water recently. Not saying that's all because they're offensive coordinator, but they have a really interesting offense that I think could confuse some Big 12 defenses.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Bring him home.
Because for some reason that happens every time there's even a whiff of change in the air. Even today, his name came up with the Houston job. So this is a great reminder as we head into the work week. If you think you're working hard, you are not working as hard as Cliff's agent.
Eric,
I saw, so Aranda apparently specifically said, we're going to bring in an offensive coordinator who has head coaching experience. And I saw a Baylor fan say Cliff Kingsbury. I was like, I can't do that because he would hang 50 on us.
That's not going to happen, right?
I'm pretty
There's
sure the
no
quote
way.
was head coaching experience and explosive offensive plays, like through the air. Like it was both of those. It kind of strum a chord.
I don't think he would go back to college. I just think he hates the recruiting stuff. But if he was told like, hey, you get to lock yourself in the film room, we have an entire staff to do the recruiting. You're not the head coach, so you don't have to go shake hands with the donors or speak at the Chamber of Commerce breakfast. Maybe he would do it. I hope he wouldn't do it at Baylor because that would just suck to.
Yeah, I was about to say
root
at
against
Baylor.
him. Yeah, like I feel like that's kind of what he's doing at USC. So
Yeah.
stay there. But he's not calling the plays at USC like he would at Baylor.
Ugh.
I really don't want Cliff to go to Baylor.
I don't either. That would be awful. I don't want him in the Big 12 at all.
No.
He would be
Go-
funny as head coach at Houston, but
Yeah, go teach the Big Ten how to play offense.
yeah,
Don't
Go
do
to-
that here.
go to Indiana. I did see that Philip Bleedy and who else went to
Kobe
Indiana?
Minor.
Kobe, both tweeting decision time. So they have a coaching change. They might leave Indiana.
And we could use starting caliber players at defensive tackle and corner.
Yes, you could. Kyle has been a proponent of playing SMU in Dallas from a fan perspective. How comparable would that be to playing UTSA in San Antonio?
I think here's the deal. I want to play SMU because they're a Power 4 team now. UTSA, I think, it's only guaranteed to be interesting as long as Jeff Traylor is there. So, like, if you scheduled UTSA for 2026, probably not going to happen. I'm not saying they'll immediately fall off without Jeff Traylor, but if they do, it's like, to me, that's no different than like when you used to play Texas State, before G.J. Kinney or whatever. So I want to play SMU because I know you would fill their stadium. You'd get to say, like, hey, we have an ACC opponent on the books indefinitely. So I would still say SMU over UTSA and not particularly close.
How do you think Joey will handle this offseason? Will he stay quiet and work, or will he try to be a hype man like he wasn't working last offseason?
Yeah, I reject the premise that those are two mutually exclusive things. But so Tech Hoops guy, when he was on the podcast, he was like, Joey's going to do it again. Like, he's not going to just go quietly into the night and not talk offseason expectations. But maybe he'll recalibrate a little bit and not. Here's my only beef is, like, don't be so explicit with we're going to win this championship. We would beat this team by this many points. Just say, like, we're confident in our guys. We've gotten better. Kind of like nebulous stuff that can't definitively be proven right or wrong. But yeah, if he's like if Arizona's the Big 12 opener, he goes, yeah, we're going to beat them by 30. I was like, stop that. Say you feel good about it. You're looking forward to them joining the Big 12 and that you think it'll be a competitive game and that if you do win, it'll prove a lot about your team. But don't, like, let's quit with the score predictions and all that. So I think maybe he'll reel it in that respect a little bit.
Yeah, I think you'll see a different Joey, but not a different Joey. Joey's Joey.
Yeah, he's always going to be positive and all that, but
maybe not going to say our quarterback room is the best in the country and our defensive line room is better than last year, even though we don't have Tyree Wilson. Start bench cut Bert Auburn, Bert and Ernie, and Bert Reynolds. Rubber ducky.
I'll start Bert Reynolds.
Okay. Are you going to bench Bert and Ernie or cut Bert and Ernie?
I kind of like Bert Auburn. No cap. I know he plays for, like, our least favorite team, but he's got the lettuce. He's a good kicker.
Bunch of kicks in a row.
Yeah, so I can't cut him.
Money?
Start Bert and Ernie.
Amen.
That's all I got.
When in an Uber/Lyft, would you rather listen to the driver's music or ride in silence?
Silence.
Music, 100%.
I was in an Uber one time with this guy. He was listening to like a manifestation recording, and like on a loop, it was like white noise in the background, and it was this lady. She was like, "You will find financial prosperity in the coming year. You will find financial prosperity in the coming year." And like she'd just repeat that 10 times, and then it would be like, you will achieve a health milestone in the coming year. You will make new connections and relationships. I was like, dude, what is this? I mean, I respect it, and I hope all this comes true for you, but like, you have a stranger riding in your back seat right now. Is this really what we're going with?
That's what the offseason expectations need to sound like. You will have a financial milestone this year. Like, just keep it that vague. Don't print any receipts. Just Just give us a little nugget.
Does Hammond have a chance to be QB1?
Yes.
Didn't we already disagree about this? I feel like we had this conversation a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the minority on this. I'm not saying that he's like the favorite, but to say 0% that kid, as good as he is, walks in and like, oh, no chance he starts. It's rare for a true freshman to start at quarterback. It does happen. We've done it with a walk-on before, granted extenuating circumstances. But yeah, I'll say 20% chance that Will Hammond at some point next season becomes your primary starter.
Well, yeah, in
Rob,
the season, not out of the beginning.
I think you said he has the talent to be the starter next year. I think that's what I'd say right now. Those are good words.
Yeah, he's good enough to be the starter.
I mean, it's Texas Tech, so you're going to have 2 starters next year.
At least.
Maybe 3. When is the – hold on. What is the likelihood that any changes are actually made in the coaching staff this offseason?
Like 90%. Do you know how rare it is to have every single position coach come back year over year? Like, even last year, it almost happened, and then Emmett Jones bailed. Like, whether it's your decision or theirs,
yeah,
it is very unlikely that every single position coach and every single coordinator comes back.
I don't think anyone will get fired, but you might have some turnover. I'll say that. I just don't see it. I might want to see it, but I don't see it happening. When will the Gauchos be releasing their public apology to Big 12 MVP Alan Bowman?
No, I actually think this is a good time. I would like to apologize to absolutely nobody. What is there to apologize for? He's a bus driver. He threw the ball directly to BYU, basically in the end zone last weekend. They won in spite of him.
Yeah.
Now, I hope he beats Texas. Don't get me wrong. If he beats Texas, I'll apologize to Alan Bowman. Even if he's 13 for 26 with 1 touchdown and 2 INTs, if they win, I'll apologize.
This is a good question here. Was Texas Tech the most disappointing team in the Big 12 considering preseason expectations?
No.
Who was?
TCU.
Were they picked above Texas Tech?
Same win total in Vegas. They were picked neck and neck, like 4 total points behind Texas Tech. They were picked 5th. You were picked 4th. But it was a de facto tie, and we said as much when it came out. They lost you head-to-head. They went 3-6 in conference. They are not going to a bowl game. I know their coach didn't say that they were going to win the Big 12 and that this year's TCU team could beat their national runner-up team by 14. But looking at some objective, like where they were picked versus where they finished, season win total, bowl game, no bowl game, head-to-head, they're more disappointing.
I agree with that. Though I think Texas Tech is in the conversation.
Maybe K-State too, but even that feels like a reach.
Just going to throw this out there. Baylor went 3-9.
But we had that expectation.
Baylor went 3-9. When's the last time Tech
expectation for them?
When is the last time Tech won 3 games in a season? Jerry Moore, like 1982.
Yeah, I mean, even when you had the shortened season, you won more than 3.
Yeah, you went 4-6. Baylor went 2-8 in COVID. Baylor went 1-11 in Matt Rule's first year. They've had a lot of like worse seasons than you've had in almost a half century here.
But nationally, people would say they're a better program.
Yeah, because they also have the high end of the spectrum that we've never done.
That's true. That's tough.
I would go 3-9 if it meant winning 12 games, a Big 12, and a Sugar Bowl 2 years before that.
Yeah, give me that.
No doubt.
To be fair, Baylor's also what? To be fair, Baylor's won 10 games before. So is Texas Tech. What does that
But
mean?
I think they're basically saying like what we were just.
Oh yeah.
Baylor has the great seasons.
We're not Iowa State though. I mean, come on. More offensive coordinator questions, more Kitley questions. What's your take on putting players on the podium for post-game pressers? That's a hard sentence to say. instead of coordinators. Haven't seen DeRuiter or Kitley up there in a while. I don't think they were up there at all this season. They speak in the midweek.
Yeah, they have a Monday press conference with both coordinators.
Yeah. I don't need to hear from Kitley and DeRuiter after the game. I like hearing from players and Joey.
If I was the head coach, I would let players go after a win, but I would probably just go up there alone after a loss, especially a loss like that. What is Rabbit or Taj Brooks or anybody going to say?
Is it realistic to get Dana Holgerson on the Texas Tech football offensive staff?
No.
No?
Tech fans are like Kitley with the sideline pass. If somebody's ever coached here and he's unemployed, like, well, could we bring him over? Like, I get it. Dana's fun. He was almost a head coach here when you hired Wells. I say almost. He was like in the discussion. But no, like I don't see Dana mixing with McGuire or Kitley for that matter.
Analyst?
I mean, is Dana going to do that? Does he seem like the kind of personality that's like, yeah, I'll be the 16th highest ranking member on the coaching staff?
I don't know. Maybe he takes a year off and just as an analyst. Did you think GP was going to be the 16th member on his staff and not be in the mix?
I mean, yeah, because he did it at Texas.
Right, but before he went to Texas, did you think that was going to be a thing?
No.
Right, so maybe Holgerson comes home and spends some time.
I also think Gary Patterson was very motivated by spite.
Yeah, well, that's
so. I don't know if Dana getting fired from Houston is like, well, I'll show them by being a GA at Tech. Like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I respect the question, but I don't think so.
Since Dana got fired, does Dogovan come home? No.
That'd be cool.
It would be, but no.
I said it before he hit the portal last year. I was like, stay and be Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
You'll have 50 pass attempts next season. You'll also have 50 rush attempts and like 20 catches. And you'll probably score 10 times.
Is it strange to go all out with Halloween decorations in your front yard, but not do any Christmas decorations whatsoever? Kyle, I feel like you have some thoughts on this.
No, it's just my across the street neighbor went all out for Halloween. Like, really impressive. He has nothing. He doesn't have a single light bulb for Christmas. And I'm like, I know you will decorate for a holiday because I saw it happen a month ago. But is that weird? Like, I feel like Christmas is the decorating holiday. And if you're going to decorate for another holiday, you're probably the kind of person that decorates for Christmas. And I know not everybody celebrates Christmas, but I feel like even non-religious people, Christmas is like a very widely celebrated holiday, even for like secular people.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that. I don't know. Is that weird, or am I overthinking it?
I think you're overthinking it a little bit. I would say in the last 5 or 10 years, Halloween has been a more decorated holiday than in the past. I mean, there were 10-foot skeletons all around the neighborhood this year. So I would say it's probably neck and neck, or getting to neck and neck, that Halloween is as decorated as Christmas is. At least around where I am. Maybe I'm just with a bunch of heathens. All Hallows Eve. Huh? And then the last question is how I started the basketball segment. So lots of Kitley questions that we didn't get to, but I feel like we answered them adequately.
One note on that. Given the current, like, as coaching openings stand right now, like, assuming the hypothetical that Zach Kitley is not Texas Tech's offensive coordinator, like, let's say starting tomorrow, who do you think the betting favorite would be for the OC position? And do you think it would be Jeff Grimes?
I think Jeff Grimes is a tough sell given what happened at Baylor this year. And I don't think it was Jeff Grimes' fault, because Dave Aranda has fired 2 offensive coordinators after 4 seasons. And he's either fired or demoted 2 defensive coordinators. Like, to me, Aranda clearly a sinking ship, and he's passing off blame one last time to his coordinators before he gets the axe. But again, it's a tough sell after how bad they were on offense. That's why I floated him as like if he would come as a position coach, O-line, tight ends, running backs, whatever, I think he could do any of that, inside receivers, and like run game coordinator, co-OC, I would take that. I don't think he would be like your full-time OC, though. I think he might be in the mix, though. I know this is what I want, and maybe I'm biased, but I do think the UNLV guy would get a look. Like, former high school head coach, Joey loves that. He's coached in the Big 12. He's coached in Texas. I don't think it's the craziest thing. I don't know if he'd be the favorite, which is your question, but I think he might be like on a short list with Jeff Grimes. I think both of them would kind of be on a short list. I'm trying to think who would be the favorite.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to go from Kitley, is Sonny Cumby still employed at Louisiana Tech? Would you run that back?
Again, like an easier sell in 2021 when McGuire first hired him versus right now he's like 6-14 at La Tech or something like that. Would Cliff come back in a scenario we just described, like no recruiting?
No, I don't think so.
Would Davis Webb, the son of a high school coach, would Joey give him a call?
First, I don't know. I don't think so.
Davis Webb feels like a very Kitley-esque hire, like young guy, kind of unproven. But Davis Webb, when he was playing here, he said he wanted to come back and coach here. And Joey is all about you have to be able to connect to high school coaches and high school players.
Yeah.
And so I always think through that when I'm trying to put myself in his shoes, like who would he hire? I try to think of some sort of high school tie. The Riley Dodge. I'm just coming up with a hot board here. I'm not saying any of these guys are the favorite, but like who are the 10 guys he would call to gauge interest? I think Riley Dodge would be on it.
Seth Luttrell.
Yeah.
Does he already have the OU job?
Emma Jones, third time's a charm.
Graham Harrell.
Oh, God, no. Y'all laughed at Cliff, and then y'all are going to throw out Grant Harrell. Come on.
People are asking you to use UNLV guy's name instead of just UNLV guy. Brennan Marion, I believe is his name.
Yeah. I'm way better at, like, jersey numbers.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible with names. I do that with people I meet, too. I'm like, oh, he's like that. He works at the bank. He's been there for 5 years. He lives in West Fort Worth. Like, I don't know his name. He has 3 kids.
The Ravens are missing field goals and letting the Chargers back in the game.
Garrett McGuire.
Wolf. I'm sure he's a brilliant young man as a wide receivers coach at Nebraska, but to move on from – and let's just say this is Zach Kitley getting a new job. Like, let's say Houston offers him the head coaching role, or G.J. Kinney goes to Houston and he gets the Texas State job, and you move on like that. But, yeah. And I would assume if you're moving on from Kitley, or if Kitley moves on, you're also looking for an offensive line coach. Just because I think Kitley would take Hamby with him. With that kind of relationship, you usually go with you. But maybe Hamby stays at Texas Tech. I don't know. I've not been how to say this. I think the offensive line has improved week over week the last 2 seasons. I don't think they've gotten worse. But I don't think they've improved year over year. Does that make sense?
I don't think this is likely, but again, I'm putting it like it has a 10% chance of happening. Like it could happen. The UTEP job is a weird one. Like they play in the worst conference in FBS. The local high school talent is terrible. No offense. Like it's not like being at a G5 job in Houston or Dallas where you can pluck those kids that don't quite make it to Power 5. Like you got to go a long ways. And most kids, if they have the opportunity, are going to go play at UTSA or SMU or whatever, and not UTEP. So it's a hard place to win, and their history, I think, kind of shows that. That said, that means they can't exactly go pick some premier coach with, skins on the wall, like, yeah, he's won for 10 years at this level. He's done it before. I wonder if they would take a shot on a young coordinator like Zach Kitley or somebody like that. And if I don't know what Zach Kitley's goals are. We've talked about this before. Like, do you want to stay an offensive coordinator at the Power 5 level until you can be a Power 5 head coach? Like, that's one avenue to being a head coach. Or it's Power 5 coordinator and then Group of 5 head coach, and then you win at the Group of 5 level, you make the jump up. Maybe he's interested in that. Maybe he's not. It's hard for me to peg like who UTEP's candidates are going to be because, again, they can't go pluck SMU's head coach or UTSA's head coach. They might be able to get one of their coordinators. Like, they probably can't go get Eric Morris from UNT. Like, it's probably not that good of a job. So right. I think they have to roll the dice on somebody who probably hasn't been a head coach yet or recently. And they have to roll the dice on somebody that like doesn't have a ton of skins on the wall. Matt Wells was mentioned in the mailbag. I don't think we got to that question. I don't think that's insane. Like, he's coached at the Group of 5 level before. He's now recruited in the state of Texas quite a bit. It wouldn't shock me if Matt Wells or Zach Kitley. I'm kind of just throwing darts at the wall here, but to me, that's the kind of guy that UTEP has to approach about that job.
With New Mexico, UTEP, ULM, and UH open, is there a good place for Wells to get back on his feet?
I think New Mexico and UTEP of that 4.
Yeah.
Thought I saw his name come up for the Baylor OC job. I don't remember if I saw that on a report or just like an article, but the comments from Tech fans were giving me an indication that it was probably just a hot board.
That would be beautiful.
And I mean, unless I was just desperate to be a head coach, I wouldn't take the UTEP job. Like, I love El Paso. Their stadium is great.
Yeah.
But that is a hard road to hoe. And
it's either you're young and confident or you're old and washed like Dana Dimmel.
But like, also, I guess though, that said, like, you go make 2 bowl games at UTEP out of Conference USA. Like, can you get to 7-5 in Conference USA? That's not impossible.
Right.
So maybe they view it as like, I'll go kill it at UTEP, in a relative sense, win 7 games at UTEP, and then I can make another leap somewhere. So I don't know. Maybe it's a worthy roll of the dice, but I'm watching that job because I think they'll hire somebody with Texas ties and could impact something Texas Tech or Big 12 related. I mean, the last head coach, Dana Dimmel, was, I think, co-offensive coordinator at Kansas State before he took that job. So
certainly probably out of the Big 12. Man, the Conference USA is so weird now. Liberty, New Mexico State, Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, La Tech, Sam Houston, UTEP, FIU. FIU 1-7 in conference, 4-8 overall. David Yost, man. They beat North Texas. That is crazy.
I think that was the last second Hail Mary game.
Yeah, something like that.
UNT's homecoming.
All right. That's all I got. Any final thoughts there, boys? 2 hours in?
No, you're going to be disappointed in the opening. There's no – maybe you can add the music later, but we just kind of came in cold open and probably wasn't very good.
It's all right. I should have been here.
It's going to surprise the listener when they fire up the podcast and be like, what in the hell is this? And hopefully they don't turn it off. But
I don't think they will.
No, I think 2 hours of thoughts is plenty. So that's all I got.
Got any final thoughts there, Money?
Nope. Love y'all.
Love y'all.
Love y'all.